you ready?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the newest episode of the Weeaboo Club. This is weekly 17? 18? Thank you. Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
So I guess first up for comments was the JoJo episode.
Yes. I actually haven't looked at comments on it. Let me do that now. Sorry.
sad.
Pull them up.
Offline confirmed what I was saying because I swore I heard Araki had ideas for part 9 in mind, and he mentioned the interview that was apparently from 2004. So yeah, curious to see how part 9 turns out. I agree with Kage. Why don't we have a Vindy Noises compilation yet?
Someone else would have to make that, right? I mean, someone can make it. I make a lot of noises out of my mouth. So, I'm sure there's a lot of squeaking you could put together. I did like this one by Jack that gave me stuff to think about whenever I do eventually reread, which was just the all the main villains in JoJo have something of manipulating or changing fate.
Yeah, and actually, because I did realize that after seeing that comment that, that is kind of a big thing. And someone who's been reading JoJo on my server has also been noting how, the series seems to be bringing up fate and luck a lot. So that's kind of, again, something I will also be curious about on the reread. But that's all I have on that episode.
Oh my gosh, you guys hate me. What the heck? I left 3 different comments. Holy shit.
Well, one of them
4
just says
actually,
neat.
but one of them, I guess it got held for review or something.
You want me to just say, Nunmanji said neat. What do you want from me there? Come on.
Acknowledge the one that you should acknowledge specifically.
Well, fine, I'll acknowledge it. 731, notice how Vindy says Roboco's name first, and then Gintama. He knows the natural order of things, how things should be deep down in his heart. And I don't have much to say about the one about part 2, because I know I need to reread all of JoJo. I don't know how I'm going to feel about it. God, you're so mean.
Yeah, that's all I have to say about that, honestly. Don't have to... I mean, there weren't that many... it seems like people really liked the episode, right? Has good views.
Yeah.
Good like to dislike. So I'm glad y'all liked it. Just, I guess there weren't a lot of comments on it. Not like the weekly, which had a bunch of actually pretty good ones.
So, I mean, to talk about I think the one with the most likes, or at least it's up there, is, I didn't think about it, but it's so funny that Craftsdwarf lived the moment in Jaya where everyone laughs when they, because I didn't even think about that, because, yeah, and that also comes up on the Reddit a bit,
Yeah, okay, I have something very important to say. Wutter said, I do not want a fetish episode. I listened to this at work. And then Rafa received my graphics response headphones, and he said, I let them listen with me.
Oh my god.
To the people at Wutter's job, I am sorry that this man forces you to listen to our rancid screaming. I very much apologize that y'all listen. However,
I didn't actually think about
if you do listen every week, and you think, yeah, these guys aren't too bad, I would appreciate a subscription on the channel.
Yeah. Get more subscribers. We get closer to the fetish episode.
If they're listening anyways.
Yeah, I mean, might as well plug. Sushi says that apparently 2 people got into a fight after Ace died in One Piece because one of them didn't like Ace.
Worth fighting someone over.
I agree, but, that's neither here nor there.
Blue Knight told a story of someone going to club in an Urahara cosplay and wearing it to class and stuff. and that also they watched an episode of Fairy Tail, but with no audio, which is something else.
Hey, that sounds like past me, at least for watching some One Piece without audio. But let's not talk about that.
Let me see if there's any... Oh, I had a whole conversation with Guitar Skater that ended with both of us agreeing that we were wrong in certain aspects. So, good productive conversation in the comments of the Weeb Club for the first time ever. We're going to skip the Kage comment. Don't want to talk about it. It's not real. It's a lie.
She hates you.
It's just accurate. I'm sorry.
No.
It is.
No.
So anyway, I'm ready to move on to the Reddit.
I agree.
So the first new one is funny. It's a SpongeBob edit. Especially because the punchline with what vanishing, because we're talking about 3x3s, is funny. After that is another reference to the my story in the anime club.
That was funny. I like that. Also great. Every masterpiece has its cheap copy. Funny. And I agree. Kanojo mo Kanojo is a masterpiece.
Can't wait to fucking talk about it. Holy shit.
Uh-huh.
But before we talk about it, we got to talk about the topic. And before we talk about that, I want to say that by the time this episode comes out, we will have a few days until the poll ends for the patron topic pick. Yes. So how I decided to do it is a little different than how I said in the Patreon post earlier. Is just like, because everyone who gave suggestions gave like multiple suggestions. So how we're going to do it instead is we're just going to pick from your suggestions, and the one we like the most will be your poll choice until it gets voted, and then we'll just pick from whatever, like, so you can keep adding suggestions as you think of them, and we'll just like look it over when we do the poll, as long as you're a patron still. So so yeah, it'll just stay, and if you that's it, just go vote if you're a patron and you haven't already. And we should do that. That should hopefully be our next topic for next week, vote, unless something major happens. But I don't see that happening. So yeah, just wanted to mention the patron. Yes, this is patroness on Patreon, Weeb Club patron. Yeah, there's a link in the description. Do that or something.
Yeah, so go vote on that. Also, at some point, the poll for the next anime that we watch season 1.
Don't remind me that the season's almost fucking over.
Should come up soon, so be looking out to vote on that, because that'll also be a patron a poll
for the show that we're watching after Kanojo mo Kanojo for next season. Yep.
Yeah. So, do you want to get into the
the topic, which I suggested? So I'll introduce it.
Pog.
Basically, Twitter likes to have the discourse happen. I don't know specifically if anything's happened recently. I just did see some people bring it up. I remember it being a little bigger a while ago, which made me think of it. Manga versus comics. And how comics are bad because they're hard to get into. And manga is good because it's easy to get into. But, like, I don't know about you guys. I think it's fucking stupid.
Yeah, in some way. So I think that like there is like a very legitimate conversation that you can have there, but I think people definitely go about it really dumb, and I think the comparison is overall not helpful, except if you're trying to make a point that is outside of just manga versus comics, right? Like if someone wanted to make the point. Right, that like for example, like because like of what you said, right? Like I think that there is a point you can make, and there's a way to go about making the point of, okay, personally, I read a lot of manga and don't read a lot of comics, and a large part of that is I can start a manga from chapter 1, right? And I know I'm at the beginning, right? But with comics, especially if you really want to get into it and get into the stories, for things that aren't, series that stand on their own, right? So especially for large superhero stories, right? Or Marvel or DC, stuff like that. There are these very interconnected universes where there's a lot of story arcs that'll go. And even if you just read Amazing Spider-Man, right? At some point, Civil War happens. Even just like as one example, Civil War happens. Spider-Man's in that and matters to that. And that changes how things happen in the Spider-Man lore. So then you at least have to go read that, right? And then it becomes very messy because then there are all these other characters and like what all do you read? And so in that aspect, like I do understand... if that was just the extent of like the comparison you were making, right? Where it's like, personally, I it hampers my reading of it or something, right?
See, for me, it's because I feel like if you have someone who does know and you're getting like recommendations or you're using like read guides potentially, like that issue goes away, right? Provided it's a trustworthy source, right? So, for example, a lot of the comics I read, I did on my side channel for. If you patron me, I have a backlog builder thing where the people who patron enough suggest things, and then they get voted on, kind of like how the topics work. And then I read or watch whatever one, and then I do a vlog on it. So yeah, a lot of the comics I've read recently are stuff that was for the backlog builder, and so they were like very specific runs, like Jeff Lemire's Moon Knight, Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol, or they were just whole on like Planetary, just a standalone kind of comic thing. So, and I can legitimately say that I enjoyed every single thing I read. Even the Batwoman run that I read that got canceled was still like interesting and good for what I got at, for what happened, right? Like, even though, and the reason it got canceled is because DC sucks and they didn't want Batwoman being in a gay relationship, but
Cringe.
and, which is unfortunate because it was a good comic. I thought the relationship was good for what I saw of it, and but it got canceled. So anyway, but like I do understand if you're coming at a perspective of like in your case, Vindy, right? You like Thor, right? From the Marvel movies. So where do you start reading Thor? You just don't know. You have to like look it up and you have to research. And so you have these extra steps. Compared to that, if you say you're getting into anime or manga, it's like you hear about Attack on Titan. Well, I want to read Attack on Titan. It's not that hard to get into it, right?
Because it's why I do find it really dumb when people will ask like, oh, well, where do I start with this manga?
Berserk.
Chapter 1.
Yeah.
Like you would say the One Piece, like, oh, well, where do I start with One Piece? Chapter 1.
Yeah, or episode 1, right? Like, would I recommend the anime? No, but like if you really want to watch it, episode 1, right? There's no real, because and that's, but with comics, it isn't that simple at all, and I do understand. Right. But there's also like, there's so many comics, and there's also so many standalone ones. Like, I think like, yeah, people know and want to get into the superhero stuff, which is its own beast for sure, but like, one of my favorite comics is, or like, if I were to rank my top 3, it's like The Immortal Hulk, which I'll talk about in a minute because I think it's interesting. Then it's like Planetary and Watchmen, and you can just read Planetary and Watchmen, even though they're both like very like referent to, in the case of Watchmen, superhero stuff, to the point that I believe it was originally planned to involve minor DC heroes like Blue Beetle and Question,
right,
and Captain Atom, where Planetary more references just Pulp Fiction in general. So yeah, superheroes, like a major antagonist is sort of like an evil Fantastic Four. There's one chapter early on that deals with kaiju. There's a Tarzan character who's also racist. So it's very much referent to a lot of just these kind of pulpy pop culture things, but it's not. So even though it's mostly superheroes, it's like other stuff too. So that's just kind of like, even if they are these standalone comics, they're still referring to ideas that, you should probably have at least some idea of, right? Or at least know about in some way. Like, I mean, could you read Watchmen as your first superhero piece of media ever? Maybe, but like, it's just a good comic. Right? So, this is normal, but like, if you don't know where to look, then I can understand being lost, right?
I think it's not even just not knowing where to look, like, for one hero, right? And like, this is like the big thing, especially for anyone who's like directly an Avenger, it's like, there's so much more than just, okay, well, even if like someone says, well, this Thor run's really good, right? That Thor run probably involves, something that would have to do with storylines that had been brought up in the Avengers, and especially like, I do think especially for like the way we consume media, right? For like the long runs, right? Like, I'm not just gonna read one writer's run from Amazing Spider-Man, right? Even if it is really good, right? I'm not gonna read Amazing Spider-Man like 362 to 429 or some shit like that, right? Like, I'm gonna want to read it all, right? Because like, I want to see the progression of the story and the character from the beginning, right? And then, well, the character has, again, like, things in other comics and stuff. So I do think, especially with, like, the long runs, like the, because to me, I think that's one of the most interesting aspects of comics is, like, that there has been one main Spider-Man comic running for, 60 years, or one Batman storyline, you know what I mean? That's, like, been this consistent thing going this whole time, that's had these major developments and stuff like that. And in that instance, like, it is very hard. But yeah, I mean, there obviously are, you know, like with Batman, you know, it's like I've been reading, I'm like halfway through like The Dark Knight Returns, right? And there's like Batman Year One and other like solo runs that I think work and can be like their own like individual thing that you can read. But you know, I even if I just read, you know, Dark Knight Returns and Batman Year One, it's not like I have a great understanding of Batman stories because there's still so many others that I haven't seen.
1 second, I want to look something up real quick.
Yeah. But again, like I will say that I think trying to make like a point of like manga is better than comics or comics are better than manga is so dumb, because even like the way that the two tell their stories is so vastly different, you know? Like I don't know if you would agree from what you've read. I think comics are generally a lot more wordy or a lot wordier.
I would say so, yeah.
And just the way that, you know, they visually tell their stories are very different. And I also think that a lot of times the way that I think that the way that like a comic handles its conflict, right? And the way a conflict is resolved can be different across the two, you know? So I do think that there's like major differences between them and how they're shown visually. Even just like basic conventions of the medium. Like they are very similar. Like, you know, if you want to be like as broad, they are both graphic novels, right? Is like the medium.
Yes. Oh no, when I made some purchases of Barnes & Noble yesterday, and it was kind of funny because in the graphic novel section, there was like Comic Shoashi, which is a history of the Showa period written by like a manga author who I remember hearing about this comic specifically because they died within the last couple of years. Like it's an old manga. And there was also an Overlord art book, which I just imagined was there because it literally couldn't fit in the manga section because it was big.
Yeah. No, the manga section of Barnes and Noble go off nowadays. They're huge.
No, there was like 4 whole sections to it, and I was like losing my mind seeing like some of this shit.
Yeah, you just walk around like pick out manga out of it and just like look up. Well, oh, this manga.
Yeah, I haven't been there in so long that it just like, what, this series got like there's a Durarara sequel, Undead Unluck and Match Love physical releases, like that kind of shit. But yeah, there was also Usagi Yojimbo there for some reason, which is not a manga. It is a Japanese inspired like Western comic. I remember because the character showed up in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2003. It's under the Dark Horse label, so it's like right. So even I just thought it was funny that at Barnes and Noble like they don't have it straight as I would define it, right? Right. Because like they are both graphic novels, but like I see what you're saying about like I'd rather start from issue 1, but like and yeah that would definitely be a thing to experience, but at the same time, like, because I think just part of the thing with comics is that you do just kind of have to like go in and just gradually like learn more as you read more, and yeah, ideally like you have some kind of resource to help you like put things together, because like I was going to mention Immortal Hulk, which I would describe as like it's basically going through the entire Hulk mythos and giving a lot of attention, apparently like really early Hulk comics, he only transformed into the Hulk at night. Like it was even more like a Jekyll Hyde thing, and so that comes back for the Immortal Hulk. It has especially early on, it has this horror vibe, which is also more in line with the original Hulk comics. And then as I read it, and it's like I did have some familiarity with like the characters related to the Hulk, even though I've never actually read a Hulk comic, just because I've done some research beforehand for other reasons. And so, like, I had at least, like, I know who Brian Banner is. He's Bruce Banner's abusive father, who Bruce Banner killed. Like, I knew that before I touched Immortal Hulk, and that is kind of important. But, like, so, part of the reason... But, like, at the same time, there are so many characters I didn't know at all. Like, I didn't know who Doc Samson was. I didn't know who, I think that was a Sasquatch, or maybe I'm mixing up characters. I don't know who the UFOs are. Apparently they're like an evil Fantastic Four who are like antagonists to Hulk. Like, right? Like there's so many characters I don't know. But Immortal Hulk is still like one of my favorite comic books. Like, even though I don't have a lot of context into the Hulk aside from like some basic ideas of who this character is and that character is, and just of course like the Hulk style in general, I still really fucking liked it, and it literally made me want to at some point go back and like experience like a shitload of Hulk media. Like I literally have a list of all non-comics Hulk media and 3 comic guides for like read orders for the comic books, right? That it'll be a while before I get around to them, right? But like, so like, you know, yeah, if I went back to the first Hulk comic, it's probably not good. Like Vindy, one thing I've been thinking of it, because I have seen like some panels of Thor and stuff. You might hate Thor comics.
Oh, it's entirely look. I will say this.
He speaks in fucking Shakespeare bullshit.
Well, no, okay. First of all, I like Shakespeare, so that's not a problem for me. But I will say this, and this might get me some hate in the comments and hate from other people, but I will stand by this because I think it's true. Like, I think comics art, especially like older comics art, like from like the 60s and like the 70s and even into like the 80s, a lot of it I don't think looks great, right? At least not like what we're used to from like not what like you're used to in like graphic novel art now, or graphic novel art like manga art, either. Because I think comic art now looks phenomenal, right? Like, it almost makes sense because, especially when you think back, like, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, like, those two as a duo were doing how many comics at once? Right? So I'm sure their time was stretched thin where they didn't have, a month to draw one issue, right? They probably had a couple days to get it out because they
and if you look at the credits, there's, like, usually, like, about 6-7 artists credited for, like, one issue because they have colorists, they have they have people in different positions, like, basically, they do what manga should do and credit everyone who works on the chapter.
Right.
Right, I guess that's, because I was just like, oh, wait, no. Because they put so many artists and, credits on every issue, but then I realized, like, oh, wait, no, that's how it works in manga, too. They just are transparent about it with comics.
But, like, if I look up, like, I don't even know, like, if I look up, like, a superhero and I try to find, like, early art, I just... And maybe it's not that it's bad, it's just, like, I don't like it, but, like...
No, because you mentioned... Jack Kirby in particular, I've heard of, is, like, a really respected artist and did some really cool stuff with, like, a lot of what he worked on.
Right.
But he's maybe not reflective of, like, every single old comic artist.
Right. Yeah, and so I just, like, I already think, like, some of it's, like, a little bit harder to read and stuff like that, right? And look, I'm sure people are gonna fucking hate me for saying that. I think some old comics.
Well, you say that, but I, at the same time, like, how many people on the Weeb Club do read comics? And actually, I would be kind of curious to hear what their perspective is with comics. Because, like, I feel like I've read very few, and, and like I said, I think just that, like, especially if you want to get in, you just kind of have to just get in. And, because, reading from the first comic isn't necessarily going to be the best, like, experience. Right, and I don't think that should be a turn off to people because, like, I don't know, and, like, if I can enjoy Immortal Hulk just from reading it, which, again, I feel like, I would almost say, like, reading Immortal Hulk, just reading it is kind of like starting Evangelion from, like, end of Evangelion, which is, like, don't do that, but, obviously there's a big difference in accessibility there, where it's, like, in order to, get End of Evangelion, you just have to watch like 26 episodes of Evangelion. Right. To get Immortal Hulk, I have to go through like literally 50 years of this character's history in comic book form, and it's like, and I do want to now, but I didn't need to get something out of it, right?
I wonder, like, the way you're talking about it makes me think of wrestling, right? Where it's like, if you want to watch wrestling,
keep going.
There's a lot of stuff that's happened that still is canon to the story and matters. But you're not going to go and watch every single Monday Night Raw over the past, 25, 30 years, right?
Oh, I need to... Yeah, I'm interested in wrestling. I'm going to catch up, and you go back to the fucking, like, when it started.
You just turn it on Monday. And so I don't know if comics do this as well, right? Because the one thing I will give, like, wrestling, that generally wrestling's really good about is because that's how everyone gets into wrestling, right? Every single person who's ever gotten into wrestling has that point where they just watch their first Raw, right?
Right.
So there's
Which is also just kind of like, as a kid, when I'm watching stuff on TV, that's just kind of how I watch some things. Like, I remember specifically the 4th season of Digimon Frontier. I don't know what episode it was, but I can tell you what regularly happened in it, and I just started watching Digimon there, and then I kept watching until basically the end, right? And I eventually figured out what was going on.
Right.
Just didn't happen at first.
Well, and that's the thing is that, like, but I will say, and maybe comics do this, and I just have to get over, like, how I feel about it personally, but, wrestling does a really good job at, like, anytime someone shows up, if they haven't been there in a couple weeks, they give you a replay of the last time we saw them or something. The announcers are constantly talking about like the storylines going on. There's a lot of replays to the previous week, the previous pay-per-view, the previous couple weeks. Like, there's a lot to help people get caught up on the storyline and what's going on. And I don't know if comics do that as much. You know what I mean? Or like if I buy if I go buy the most recent, Aquaman comic, does it just kind of throw me in, give me maybe a little bit of a backstory of like, this is like how the very last issue ended, and then just kind of throw me in the middle of something, not tell me, where I'm coming from, where I'm going, just kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, see, and I wouldn't suggest reading Immortal Hulk from like chapter, issue number 19,
right,
or something like that. I'd still recommend it from issue 1, but I guess to give like what I was gonna say about wrestling is because with wrestling, as I understand it, you're kind of following or like every person in that you see is like their own character with their own storyline that you have to follow, right? Like you're almost following the characters individually rather than you are the and I know some of them can go across different promotions at times, and I don't know if that continues the storyline necessarily.
No, that's always a fresh reset because it's new writers and a lot of times when they go, it's the same person but their character changes because
right, they do play multiple characters,
or the character will be a lot of times like a name, right? Like there was one guy who was in WWE and his name was Aleister Black. But that was trademarked by WWE. So when he came over to when he went over to AEW, his name changed to Malachi Black, and he basically hard reset. It's a very similar character because that's like the kind of wrestler he is, and that's how he wrestles.
Yeah.
But there are differences and things change because his previous character was trademarked. He can't just keep it.
Okay, yeah, and so there might be if you watch the Malachi Black stuff, there might be stuff you get out of it knowing his history, right?
Right.
Even if it's a different, and that's kind of I think comics work in a similar way because DC reboots fairly often. Like the Batwoman stuff I read was part of the New 52, which was a massively they basically did like 52 runs, reset the universe, did all these character introductions.
That was
and I remember hearing a lot of buzz about that.
That was their answer to Marvel's Ultimate series, right?
I don't know about that. I just know that it happened and it was fairly successful.
That's what I've always heard of it as is like because Marvel had Ultimate for a lot of superheroes,
right? Because the biggest difference between DC and Marvel is I would say like DC fairly regularly reboots their universe and just kind of like resets from zero, where Marvel does keep the same universe, but like they retcon the shit out of it basically. So you'll get stuff like Spider-Man unmasks his identity in Civil War, but you read it, if you picked up a comic now, he probably still has a secret identity because
he
made a deal with the devil or something.
With Mary Jane to get it back.
Yes, exact. One more day, the infamous right. And so like you're saying, oh, but I should read from the beginning, and it's like but how much in the beginning matters anymore?
Right.
Right. Like Thor used to be a guy with a cane who, like, I think they reference in the first Thor movie because the fake identity has as the Jane's ex, I think, has the name of Thor's original secret identity, basically. Mm-hmm. But now he's just kind of he's literally Thor, right? He's not a guy who picks up the hammer and becomes Thor. He's just Thor, right? So going back to you're reading a different Thor practically, and that's kind of another thing with reading comics is like the different runs and the different takes on the characters, right? Like even if they're supposed to be the same person, they're kind of not, right? And so with me, I just kind of like accept every run as its individual thing, so to speak. Like even if it references other stuff, like the Moon Knight run I read for the backlog builder, Jeff Lemire, it was kind of like, I don't know, I remember finishing it and there was in the comics on the Read Comics Online site I was using, and someone said, wow, this was good, but it also kind of fucks the continuity of the character. And I just kind of like, I don't really care. Because I've never read anything else of the character, and when I do, I'll just treat it as it is. So like I don't know. I guess because it's such a different like medium. Like even they are both graphic novels, but I think the way they come out, if you're going to compare comics and manga, is just so fundamentally different that you can't really look at them the same.
Yeah,
right?
that's how I feel about it too. Is like because I don't personally like the idea that like you can't compare two things. Because you can compare anything as long as you have
Is it a meaningful comparison?
Right, as long as it's a meaningful, well-done comparison that's respectful to both things you're comparing. But I would agree that like the two they're not the same. They're so wildly different that people acting like they are is a problem. Nunmanji, what are your thoughts on this? You haven't said like anything.
I mean, yeah, I think that people treating comics as the same as manga is like a really bad thing to do, because like they just fundamentally have different goals.
Oh, okay. I think he's got stuff going on, so he's muted.
Yeah, I heard some background noise.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
When he comes back, we'll let him
Right.
talk. But
yeah, and obviously, I mean, there are, like you said, like you mentioned, like Watchmen, and I've read a majority of Why the Last Man. Like there are comics that are their own independent single story, right? And so for those, obviously, it's just like those aren't hard to get into, and so
they're much closer to manga in that sense, where it's like,
Yeah.
could you just start Watchmen from the middle? Sure, but it's like, why? Just read it from the beginning.
right, and so because of that, it's like it is very much a one of those things where it's like there are, like, if you say that you want to get into comics, right, but you're like, well, I don't know where to start. Like, if your goal is, like, there's a difference, right? If your goal is to get into superhero comics and you don't know where to start, that's understandable, right? And I think people a lot of times will say comics and mean superhero comics, right? And that, I understand comics is shorthand for that. But if you legitimately just mean American or Western-made graphic novels, like comic books, there are so many you can read that have nothing to do with superheroes and are their own independent stories.
Here's an obscure one that maybe The Walking Dead.
Right.
Which is not obscure,
Or,
actually, but it's
The Boys, Invincible are two very recent, very popular series that...
And they are superhero comics, but they're also their own things that you could just pick up and read from the beginning.
Sorry, I
you back now?
got called.
You're fine.
No, it's fine.
Basically what I was saying before is just like, since comics, at least superhero comics, generally have a way larger scale story they want to tell, just in terms of like how big their worlds are, with like how many different villains and heroes they all can have working towards the same story. It doesn't make sense to compare it to like manga, to say like it's bad for trying to tell a larger scale story. And like, especially when people really like to praise like world building in certain manga series, when like comics, they're kind of like, they're in like, a lot of them are trying to make really huge worlds, and I think to not give them that credit that they're doing there is just kind of like really bad.
Yeah, because I think like that's a strength of comics. Like, yeah, it can be convoluted and messy for sure, which is like inherent in any kind of big thing. Like trying to manage that many creative voices and respect this long history while also trying to like iterate on stuff, right? Like, because I've been hearing about like certain influential writers, like Chris Claremont is a writer for the X-Men, and his X-Men basically defined them as we know them today compared to what came before him, right? And like, if he didn't have like any creative freedom, then he wouldn't have been able to do that, right? But also comics can be messy. Like there's like I saw one from Wiki where it's like alive, formerly deceased, and it's like, yeah, right? Like just their status on the wiki, and that's just how they go. And yeah, like, and I guess speaking personally, is I do like, having a big universe it's cool, right? Like, obviously, we have the Avengers movies where we get a smaller version of that, but on, in the big screen. Like, it's basically like a tighter, more focused comic book stuff where you have all these interconnected characters and stories, and then you get to see them interact with each other every so often, and it feels bigger. It's cool, right? Or I get that feeling with Ultraman, where just like, an Ultra will come in, like, I had a memorable moment, like, see, I think, it was the Ultraman Orb movie, which, you also watched, and randomly, during the climax, Ultra 7 just comes in, and, like, helps fight, and there's no build-up to it, really, like, he just comes in and transforms, and I remember losing my shit, because I'd seen Ultra 7, And I like there, even though it didn't necessarily like, but it was cool to see him come in. Like they played his theme, and there's a part of the theme where it says like his name 777 in a chant, but instead of you doing that in like the music, the antagonist was getting mad, and she said it while banging like the arm of her chair, and she's like, it's fun, and it's funny, and it was, you know, it's an anniversary thing. It was done for an anniversary thing because it was like the 50th anniversary of his character of the series, I think, or something like that. Maybe for some anniversary, yeah. So like, but I didn't even like Ultra 7 that much, but seeing him again, like, I'm a nerd. I'm easily like dangle the keys in front of my face and ooh, shiny, I guess. I don't know, but like I can't stop my monkey brain from feeling that way. And comics are like, let's do that, but always. Like, when weird minor characters become like pivotal figures in big events, like there's a nerd boner to that, right? Like, I can't think of any examples because I've never really read any events, but I do remember like, I don't remember a character, but I think it was someone stole like the Watcher's Eye, which I think would have been a Marvel thing, and the character did it was like really minor, and I don't know, shit like that. I don't know, it's fun. Mm-hmm. God forbid creators have fun and fans have fun, you know, which maybe you wouldn't get from the outside because I feel like comic fans are always bitching, but you know.
Yeah, I do think it's kind of interesting that like comics can take something minor or something that you don't expect to be important but make it important. And that's like kind of part of things people compliment about like One Piece. Mm-hmm. When it takes like some kind of character you didn't really expect to be important, or gives like Buggy becoming like like everything that happens with Buggy basically. And like, you know, him having known Shanks at a certain point, you wouldn't expect that from like chapter 1, but it like happened, and then they kept doing more and more with him. And I think in a lot of ways,
right, or the one that made me lose my shit was in the flashback with Buggy and Shanks. Some dude just like knocks him and Shanks on the head and scolds them. And he had glasses and a stripy beard. And then literally 10 years later, oh, who's this in the Saboti auction house? Oh, fuck. Like, you know, we see that, like, and it's just a little detail, right? And I guess people maybe like respect that more because they see it as like, this is one creator and his vision or whatever, even though like I said earlier, like, you know, Oda's not the only person who's writing his manga, or like even though he's the primary creative vision, and I'm sure he comes up with most of the ideas, but even like he still has assistants to help and maybe point out things that mistakes he made in editors. Like he's not doing it completely alone, right? And I don't know, I think it's cool that comic authors can like give respect to the people who inspired them by doing their own takes on those characters, right?
Right.
And that in itself is kind of cool.
I'm really glad Nun brought up the One Piece comparison because I was going to bring it up. So he's definitely in a kiss later for delving into my mind. But I think there's a lot of interesting comparisons you can make actually between specifically One Piece and comics because One Piece has been going on for so long, and is such a large, detailed, like vibrant world, right? Where like one example, right, would be that like imagine One Piece. Like a way I think you could look at comics, right, is literally imagine One Piece, but a One Piece where, a One Piece where, you know, there's a bunch of different manga also going on in the world of One Piece that all
the supernovas have their own arcs of like manga in the same universe that have also been going on.
And
for
there's also manga
that
you know, there's also been a 1,000-chapter Wano manga going on as well, right? And then we get to Wano, and then after Luffy goes to Alabasta, right? Now an Alabasta manga started. Oh, but you have to be reading the but not necessarily you have to, but you'll get more out of Reverie if you were reading the Alabasta comics, so you know what Vivi's been through for the last 900 chapters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where,
like, I see what you're saying is like obviously it is one story, but you can imagine it as it might have been written as a comic, right? Or if it was written in the same kind of medium as a comic,
I think especially with, and you could argue that comics it's a lot more standalone, but comics do have those major arcs that it sounds like, or what a lot of people really like, are these major arcs where a bunch of people, you know, all come together and it's like this major, you know.
No, I've heard that as a complaint where it's like there's so many events that they kind of stop feeling special because, big events bring in readers, so publishers go, hey, more big events.
And they do.
Exactly, so...
Yeah.
It becomes a systemic thing, right?
Right.
So,
And
because
and so that's one thing with the One Piece compare. The other one is kind of related to multiple people being able to do the same characters. Even when manga kind of does that, and we have Jump mangaka doing moments in One Piece, they're just redrawing a moment that's already happened in One Piece, right? They're not doing like a different take on One Piece or a One Piece what if story. It's this moment from One Piece, a mangaka doing a one shot of that. Right, so
Komi Naoshi's Vivi is still just Vivi, but they're, maybe not necessarily in like the artwork, like the expressions, right? Like his Mr. Two, like, he has some Mr. Two expressions that maybe, obviously are in his style, but not Oda's, but it's still like the same basic character, right? In ways that isn't really true.
Did you? I'm sorry?
What? Oh, you don't know about the Komi Naoshi?
No. Did you not hear what you just said? The slip of the tongue there? You said the same basic character, talking about Mr. 2. Honestly, toxic. I cannot believe you just said that.
No!
Those words came out of your mouth. Did you hear it, Nun?
No, I didn't.
Well, maybe
he'll
I'm
edit
wrong,
the episode, so
when he's editing
he'll
it back,
hear it.
he'll put on text if you heard what I did. Or people in
just
chat will
replay
listen.
that audio and put the thumbnail, the background in like black and white for a second, and I don't know. But yeah, no, that's right. It's pretty different. Like I guess the closest you can kind of do is those rare instances of but even then Naoki Urasawa doing Pluto and adapting Astro Boy is still they're his takes on those characters, but it is more of an adaptation rather than his own story with those characters, right?
Right.
Or stuff like, the author of Gothic doing the Phoenix novel that's supposed to finish Osamu Tezuka's story because he died. Like, that's a sequel that, I guess, by the nature of Phoenix, it will be its own original thing, sort of, but it's still, basing it... Like, that's almost more, closer to comics, but, sometimes you do get authors, doing sequels like that because, Get a Robot Arc is airing right now, right? So
or Boruto before Kishimoto took over writing it again. Was Ikemoto doing it?
No, there was another writer, and Kishimoto was involved from the ground floor in that case.
But Kishimoto wasn't writing the day to day, right?
No. Yeah, he was still coming up with the overall framework,
right?
But
that's it was still following the story directly, right? And it was still Kishimoto's Naruto and Kishimoto's idea for what the characters would eventually do. It wasn't just
actually you're such a terrible fan because you didn't bring up this example, which is actually maybe a little closer to comics in some ways, and fittingly so. My Hero Academia.
Huh?
Because Horikoshi is working with the anime staff and the anime staff. The anime films are considered canon by Horikoshi.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so the MHA franchise is kind of its own little comic book universe where you have all these different parts of it that are, take place in the same world, but do have, different creative voices in them, right? Even if, again, it's similar to Boruto where there's an overall arcing, there's, Horikoshi is sort of managing it all on some degree, but it's it's still the anime staff are the ones primarily writing the anime films, and the same with the Vigilantes author, right?
It's also the Smash mission thing. I haven't it's like a tag team spin-off series. I
don't know what that is.
I know. Sure. Yeah, there's an MHA spin-off manga.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's it definitely happens in a much smaller scale in manga. So, I do think that smaller scale makes it much more manageable, right?
Right.
Because that's the thing about comics is they're so big. There is a level of convolutedness, but I think you just kind of have to be adaptable and roll with it and just because at the end of the day, and certainly, it's fair to be critical, but, the best way to become... I guess, especially with, me, I'm very particularly critical towards people, speaking with authority, on platforms and stuff. Because if they're not informed, then...
God,
Craftsdwarf
character.
Making another appearance. Right? So... for some people, what I have to say about Immortal Hulk might still be valuable as someone who's reading it without all this context, but there might be someone who does have a lot of Hulk contests that might have more, also their own interesting things to say about it, right? Like, you know, both voices are valid to a degree, but you know, there's a level, like, it depends on, you know, what they're saying and how informed they are, and you know, I guess that's the thing with comics, is because they're so intimidating, like, it's hard to be informed on comics, right? Compared to like if you want to be informed on One Piece, just read it. Right? So yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, while I think that, you know, there are things you can say about it, and I feel like this is almost what we've been getting at the whole time, is that, like, the problem is, while there are interesting comparisons you can make or an interesting discussion you can have, a lot of the people having that discussion are doing it in the most surface level, and
they're not trying to have an interesting conversation. I feel like they're almost maybe even trying to justify that they don't get into comics, right? Like, they don't want to take that leap and be confused and lost and need assistance. They don't want that, so they just stick with what they're used to and what's safer. And like, and I can kind of understand, because I do read way more manga than I do comics. But I know there are good comics out there that are waiting for me to find them and really like them. Mm-hmm. I just, you know, don't feel like I can justify that kind of time to really get into comics, because I'm trying to do so many other things. Where with manga, even then, there's like so much stuff I want to read and check out. And, you know, especially since I have a channel where I talk about anime and manga stuff, right? So it just makes more sense to dedicate more time to that. But, you know, I'm sure there's going to be some more comics I'm going to read, and I'm going to love them, I hope, right? So, yeah. Feel like we're about done, unless you guys have more, anything else to add.
Personally, no, not on this topic.
No, I can't think of anything.
All right, it's nice to only talk about the topic for like
I would love to have a little bit
hours.
of a shorter episode for once.
No, the last episode was our longest video set, except for the JoJo EWB on the entire channel.
Oh, let's go.
Somehow.
Give me a short weekly that I can go watch some anime. Ugh, it's queued up on my TV waiting for me.
Speaking of watching anime, Kanajo mo Kanajo is fucking good.
Oh, yeah, I was ready to get into the... Yeah, it's fucking great. Y'all talk about it first.
Okay, he needs time to figure out where it was, because he didn't watch it.
No! That's not true. I don't need time to figure out where it ends.
Where did it end?
I did that during comments.
You bitch!
No, look, honestly, here's what happened, Craftsdwarf. I swear to God, you want to know what happened? I was talking to friends, because we were doing our Madden franchise draft today. So I did the draft, and I was like, okay, after the draft, I'm going to play my game, maybe talk for another 20 minutes, head out, watch Kanajo mo Kanajo.
Yeah.
Then,
what happened.
One of my dog shit friends was like, we started talking about D&D, and he's like, hey, do you want to do a D&D campaign? So then I started finding people, including you as one of them, to do a D&D campaign. And we
That's
talked
why I know
about
it happened,
D&D.
because, yeah.
I talked about fucking D&D for 3.5 hours.
I was there for like 1 hour.
And that entire time, I was looking at different races and classes and just like a fucking psychopath. I was just looking at these different races and classes and being like, oh, Minotaurs have a charge where if you do a dash as a bonus action after your dash, you can gore them for like 1d4 or some shit worth of damage just for free. That's interesting. And that's what I was doing for 3.5 hours. And I even forgot about it until we joined, and you had mentioned Kanajo mo Kanajo. I'm like, but I wasn't going to say anything. I was going to have my lips sealed.
We were. But anyway, this episode was really fucking good.
I will say, while I was going through, I was clicking through. I watched probably like half of the episode, because anytime someone was naked and it looked like it was about to be hot, I just let it play.
I mean, Shino's kind of hot. Like, when she was straddling Anaya, I was like, oh.
God.
And he hit her body when she was embarrassed about being naked by like pressing her against him, and it's like, that's not how you do that. Well, see, one thing you might have missed is when Naoya first drops down and sees Shino, and fucking, I swear to God, video game boss music started playing.
Oh, I didn't get to see that. That's really sad. I will watch it, and that will be hysterical.
Like, none. Tell me that wasn't what it sounded like.
Yeah, it definitely did. Especially because it's like, yeah, she is going to be the most difficult one to deal with.
No, it's the end of the show. She's the final boss of this season.
The only one who's not unbelievably stupid, if you can believe it.
No, I love the like responses she had where it's like, 2 timing in this economy? And it's like, wait, that's your explanation?
No,
that's
she's so good. Like, she's still dumb, but she's the only one of them who's, like, not unbelievably dumb. So she calls everyone else stupid all the time.
No, like, yeah, the moment where she's like, Saki, she's my friend and all, but she's stupid. And if you begged her, I think she would eventually say yes, and now he's like, fuck, I did that. What do you have to say about the episode? Or what are some things that stuck out to you? None.
I mean, I guess, like, within this episode, you can kind of, like, I feel like you can kind of see, Naoya starting to, like Milky, kind of, like...
Oh, yeah, they had a conversation like normal people.
You gotta love how that's what gets him, too, right? It's not her shoving her tits in his face, not her kissing him. It's her sitting down and having a normal conversation with him.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. I love it. It makes me happy.
I mean, I guess I really like the joke where Saki thought that Naoya, like, she literally said he stuck it in when Chino was on top of him.
Also, I loved Nagisa chatting out and taking pictures immediately so that she could blackmail her later. Holy shit!
Yeah, they're psychos.
Oh yeah, Vindy, you also, do you remember, because Aho Girl has a thing with bananas, right? Or one of the dumb girl liking bananas?
Yeah, I think the Aho Girl likes bananas.
No, because now you're liking bananas, I think might be a reference to that.
It could be.
Yeah, because he eventually, like, what do you like? Bananas? Like, what are you? You're bananas, I don't know.
Yeah, I love Naoya, how, like, outside of, like, the personality trait he has, he's like a blank slate of a person because he spends all of his time studying and is still dog shit stupid.
I also thought it was really funny when the other two girls come in and Naya's just like, "Excuse me, we're doing something important," and it's like, "You're trespassing, you fuck." It's the show. I love this. This might be my favorite episode so far. Holy fuck!
Because you haven't seen next episode yet.
I mean, because it ended off with Nagisa is going into her backstory.
Yeah.
And she's also stupid, and terrible at everything. But so looking forward to next episode.
Yeah, I really like the fact that it's a conversation with Milky is what really gets him to kind of start to think about her more, right? It's not any of the because she's someone who, and granted, I actually like the reason she has where she worked really hard for her body, right? And so because of that, she's proud of it, and she doesn't feel bad showing it off. But that's not what Naruto wants, right? Or not Naruto, holy shit. That's not what Naoya wants. Sorry. I was just like clicking around on my computer and I saw the Naruto openings, and that's why I said that. But that's not what Naoya wants, right? He wants, he wants a person, right? It's even the same as like, when she first confessed to him, or said that she was gonna date him. He's like, well, you don't like me, so why'd I date you? Like, to him, it's very much about this personal connection. And that's almost what, like, she doesn't understand. She has to foster with him. Just her tits aren't gonna be enough, right? She has to. Yeah,
she has to be someone, right? Because she can be a pair of tits to anyone who watches her channel, but Naoya has to know her, right? Yeah, that makes sense.
And I thought that was really good. I really like Shiho's, like, I like what she offers in this arc, where she knows it's going on, she knows no one's gonna tell her, and so the minute she gets Naoya alone, she's like gonna force it out because she's like, I know this motherfucker won't lie. I know he's too straightforward.
He didn't say that he was two-timing, but he did not say it either.
Right.
He did deny three-timing because he's not doing that, but
yeah, it's really good. I can't remember if we get Shiho's deal this arc, but I really hope we do because it's really fucking good.
I'd be surprised if next episode gave us both Shino's deal and Nagisa's deal. So
Shino's deal is either introduced in this arc or like the chapter after this arc. Not the full extent of it, but like the very the next level to her character is what I'll say.
Okay.
Like there's a level below just being Saki's friend, and I think that also gets introduced right around here. And I really want it to be because it's super fucking good. And it's great and poggers. And what we get with Nagisa next episode is also great and poggers. And it's all so good. And I'm very excited.
Next episode's the last episode, which means we can read the manga guilt-free.
I don't have any
episode.
guilt. I read it guilt
Well,
free.
you should feel shame.
What the fuck?
I got a laugh out of none. That means I win. Anyway, I'm about done with things to say about the episode.
Yeah. Weekly roundup? Or none, do you have more to say?
I'm done.
Poggers?
So this week today really, I finished Batman Year One.
Okay.
Speaking of comics,
I thought it was fine. I didn't like the beginning of it because a lot of it was just centered around Gordon and kind of setting up what Gotham is right now, and I didn't think most of what it had to say there was like something I thought was cool or interesting. But like seeing Batman start to appear and start to like change Gotham, it was kind of cool. Especially when Gordon's like seeing Gordon kind of think about him more than other people would, and kind of realize he's clearly not just like beating up people and kind
a
of
madman in a bat suit, right?
And especially when he like saves this old woman who's about to get hit by a truck. I thought it was just like kind of cool. Like it's a very small and fast story, but like by the end of it, I would say it's like pretty decent. Like it's okay. And it's like already like, even though it doesn't have a main villain in it yet, it already like mentioned Joker and like Catwoman, and was setting things up for other comics to use, which is good. I guess one thing I didn't like was just that like the font for like Batman's thoughts was in like cursive, and some of it was a little hard to read.
No, I understand. Cursive is... You're gonna use it. It's important.
Probably didn't even teach it when none was in school. Fucking Zoomer.
Wait, now I'm curious, because when I was in school, they told me that it was important then and I need it, and then I didn't really use it after elementary school.
I learned it in 3rd grade and then had to write with it throughout all of 6th and I think 7th as well in English class. So I know cursive pretty well.
Sad.
You know something wild about cursive? My younger sister exclusively writes in cursive.
Do you know what that second word at first glance
freeze.
is? Okay.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's freeze. And I
They
didn't just
freeze
say that
and
'cause Vindy
stare
said
and
it.
give me all the time in the world.
No.
But no, I can understand being like, yeah, because it...
Yeah, cursive is a
Cursive's
little weird.
bitch.
But like I said, I used it for years in school, and my sister literally writes exclusively in cursive, which is weird. But she literally only writes in it, so anytime I read anything she's written, like handwritten, it's like, yeah, okay, I have to know cursive for that.
Yeah, makes sense. When did you learn cursive in school, and when did you stop using it, if you did?
I did not learn it at all.
That explains
okay. There we go. Yeah.
If you didn't learn cursive, then I absolutely understand not knowing, because R is weird, F is a little weird, Z is weird as shit in cursive, and those E's are actually written kind of weird.
I mean, I could tell they were
but-
E's. It was just really the Z.
Yeah. No, they're yeah.
Yeah. Z especially is the one that's like all funky in cursive, so I completely understand not knowing that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I could even write the Z anymore because I'm just like, how the fuck? Now I look at it because like I could tell it was freeze because I recognized every other letter.
Oh.
But,
It's just like it's a. You kind of do like a mini in and then like another one and then a loop down like a G and then you just keep going.
that hurt me for you to say that. But yeah, anyway. Sorry for the tangent, Nun.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was alright. And it was kind of like funny, like a funny part that was like when Batman's like cornered and like in a like building, he still like goes out of his way to save just a cat. It's just kind of funny and cool to see. But yeah, it was alright.
Well, it's not my turn.
Yeah. So I have a hard time thinking of what I want to do because, sorry. I didn't really finish much. But I guess we'll talk about shit. Like, here's the problem. The thing I would want to talk about the most, I would almost want to wait for next week when Crafts has seen it.
Wait a minute. None didn't talk about ReZero.
Oh,
That was intentional on his part. He hates us.
Oh, okay.
I can talk about it next week.
I just remembered you guys last week. You guys were all like talking about
we recorded something yesterday that'll be out by the time this comes out. I hope you guys liked it because I liked recording it. I'm really just saying that to bait Craftsdwarf and make him shit his pants with excitement, not knowing what it is.
Well, now I'm thinking it's ReZero related. And
no, I asked him beforehand. I asked him. I wouldn't have done something ReZero related without asking if he wanted to be in. But I did ask him about what he thought of Amelia knowing the truth that kissing makes you pregnant. But yeah, so
she's so stupid. I love her.
I guess I'm gonna. Yeah, I guess we're gonna talk. I'm gonna talk about Shang-Chi.
Okay, I'm watching that literally tomorrow.
That's the problem. But it's either that or Berserk, and I don't really want to talk about Berserk.
I understand. Yeah.
Berserk the final Berserk chapter made me cry, not because of anything in the
that happened
chapter,
in it, but because of the context.
Reading it,
right?
the context, and knowing it was the last chapter, I got a little emotional reading it. But no, Shang-Chi was really good. It was funny because I was thinking about it while we were talking. I was like, Shang-Chi is probably the first Marvel movie since anything, I think, since Guardians, since Guardians 1, that I think you could go in and watch, and if you had never heard of superheroes before, your experience would be very minorly changed. There's
even Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I think Doctor Strange has some more stuff, but maybe you could say Doctor Strange. But I think Shang-Chi is even more removed. Well, I guess about as removed as Doctor Strange is, but Shang-Chi, literally was so removed from the other Marvel movies, but was so good. I love the actor for him. Seemingly does a great job. And I just thought it was really solid. It has the best action in the MCU by fucking far. Undeniably, just the best fight choreography and action scenes.
Yeah, what I've heard is mostly great fights, and the antagonist is one of the better Marvel villains.
He's good. He's really good. Yeah, it does a lot of really good stuff. The action scenes have a lot of the very martial art long takes, with a moving camera and this intense fight choreography going on. The first major action scene takes place on a bus and is fucking awesome. Even at the end where there's some big CGI monsters show up, I think it's still really great and engaging because there's a lot of great character moments that happen in that. And there's just a lot of really, really good stuff throughout. I thought it was a really, really entertaining movie. And I'm really excited for more Marvel movies, right? I'm excited for Eternals to see, and I'm excited for Eternals to see what it does. I'm interested to see, is Eternals going to be more based around some of the other things that have happened in the MCU, even though it's an introduction movie, or will it still also be very standalone, like how Shang-Chi was? I'm very excited.
Well, I'm
to
sure
see more
there's
Shang-Chi.
references to that. Even in the Eternals trailer, they mentioned the Avengers and Tony Stark. They bring him up, and I'm sure Shang-Chi has some of that. I know in the trailer there was Abomination apparently,
way less,
and fighting a sorcerer.
So Abomination is in the movie. It doesn't matter if you know he's Abomination or not. Actually, not at all. There's a Doctor Strange character who shows up right at the very end and earlier. Doesn't matter if you know who he is. Doesn't matter if you know anything about him. Actually. He basically shows up as a... Okay, actually, there is some play off of Iron Man 3 in the movie.
Oh, right, that because, yes.
Yeah,
even... I guess because I know that it's Legend of the Ten Rings. If you watch Iron Man, who's the organization of who captures Tony Stark in the first Iron Man, the Ten Rings,
right,
right, and that factors in Iron Man 3 as well.
And so there is some stuff there, but it's very easily passable if you don't know.
Okay,
and it just does a really good job. I'm really excited to see more of him in other movies. And what I'm really curious to see from this point on is in the next big team-up movie, when he has an action scene, do they bring in, because this movie had a lot of the Hong Kong, martial art kung fu movie, bigwigs working on it, right? Mm-hmm. Do they do that for a Shang-Chi fight scene in, Avengers 5, right?
Right.
It is really interesting to me as an idea, and I'm really curious to see what happens with that. But overall, I thought it was really good. Probably the best introduction Marvel movie.
Okay, I can see that. I mean, yeah.
So
right.
really exciting, I think, for the future of it, because if Phase 4, and I know some people were kind of mixed on Black Widow, I haven't seen it yet, but if Phase 4, from what I've seen, is already starting off this strong, and I know people like the TV shows, I don't think people have to worry that it's going to get worse after the Infinity Saga, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a good chance that it continues either getting better or staying at around like that the height it is. And so I'm very curious to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, because now that we're like about halfway done with Phase 3 on our rewatch, I've mostly heard positive things about the TV shows, and Black Widow not as much. Like I mostly heard like it's fine. Where Shang-Chi I've heard is good. Like I'm really just excited to see Phase 4 just keep going and take shape, and eventually we start to see like what's going on. What is the next Avengers movie going to be? Like it's exciting.
Right.
So because we get that build up again, and I'm looking forward to seeing that tomorrow. It's Shang-Chi tomorrow. So for me, I read a manga called Shigurui, which is a samurai manga. It technically started in a shonen magazine, the same magazine as Frankenfran. So a shonen magazine targeted toward like older teens, where it's like really dark and gory and shit. But apparently Shigurui did apparently move to a seinen magazine later. Basically, describe the premise is it opens with like a duel happening between a samurai with one arm and another samurai who's blind and like has a huge gash in their foot. And, like, the crowd is like, okay, what the hell? Like, there's two, clearly disabled samurai. Like, how can this fight be good? Except that, and then the entire manga is actually just, like, the context before this fight of these two characters who were at the same dojo. What's their deal? How do they know each other? And, like, what things happened to get to this point?
Oh,
pretty
that's
much.
cool.
Yeah. So... It's I enjoyed it quite a lot. It's very graphic, very violent. Like even erotic in some ways. Like there's volume art that has like the two of them like fighting, and they don't have almost no clothes. And yeah, there's blood and there's guts, but there's like a level of homoeroticism there, I guess. And they have their own like romance difficulties. It's very dark. It's very much like it takes place in the samurai period. And it's very much like critically. Like looking at like there's no romanticization or glorification of it at all. It very much shows like it's kind of shitty in this time period of samurai and ronin and lords building up to fight each other, and but like it also kind of shows how that was even like because at the time period like it would have been acceptable because like for some people like that like so basically like the two people who fighting. One of them kind of like rejects and does not respect the system of samurai, and so they're kind of like an agent against it, where the other one is more of an agent who accepts it. And even in his backstory, we kind of see that like he was small and weak in his family, and he would have literally just been killed or died if not for the fact that a samurai just happened to be walking along and just took him in because he was actually fairly strong, like physically, even if like he couldn't do certain other things. And so, like, he owed his life to the samurai who he wouldn't be alive without. So that's part of why he, like, accepts this system. And is like, there's even an early, like, note about how, like, the ideal hierarchy in the system of samurai is a leader who's a sadist and all the samurai masochists because they have to suffer under their leader, basically. And, like I said, very uncritical. The art is fucking great. It does a lot of cool, just abstraction at times, and good visual storytelling, and very gory, very graphic and brutal, easy to follow what's going on. The fights are kind of like methodical in a way, like they very much like the narration like explains what happened, and sometimes you even get like fights where it shows you like the mental battle that the characters are like as they envision how the fight will go, or might go. And so they're like kind of, so you see the fight as they predict it, and then like where one of them dies, and then they actually but that fight didn't actually happen. Yeah, it was a good time. I liked it. I enjoyed it. couldn't stop reading it after a certain point, and like I was at the point where I was like looking forward to reading more of it. So yeah, if you're fine with really, it's pretty dark. It ends on a bitter note. Like I said, very graphic and violent. But if that's your cup of tea, then go for it. It's pretty short too. It's only like 15 volumes, and like I said, I was pretty engrossed with it, so I read it in like one volume, and then I read the rest of it in like 2 sittings, I think. So of a few hours each. So yeah, Shigeru is good.
Pog.
And yeah, that's all I have to say. So
oh my god,
under an hour and a half. Why did I should have edited this one.
Poor Craftsdwarf.
And next week it's gonna be 3 hours again. I'm gonna want to shoot myself.
Yeah, this is the shortest weekly in a while.
I checked back when we did the seasonals. There were some that are under an hour, and I'm like longing.
I would not be surprised if this was the shortest weekly that ever happened. I just think, but it's good. It's good to be at a shorter weekly. I haven't eaten all day, so I can go make some food now.
It's hot in my room, so I can open up a fucking window.
Yeah, things are going good. I can go watch my anime I have queued up. I'm excited. Yeah.
What anime?
Can't say.
Oh.
Hey, it was what I was telling Dan and Vinmanji. I'm watching it and I really like it, and I'm not gonna say anything about it because the minute I say that I'm watching it, I jinx myself and I won't ever finish it.
That's fair. All right. So yeah, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.
All right, adios, muchachos.